I wanted to show you something that I found very interesting. I had an interlibrary loan for a book, and I found something very interesting inside. It's published by our Nova Scotia Museum. It was 1976, I believe. A Nova Scotia Workbasket, it's called. And it has most everything that would have been done as needlework and that sort of thing here in Nova Scotia. This I found very interesting, and I'm going to try to show it. This is a penny rug, and it's a very common design. It's the small pennies on a large black penny, and the color of the pennies. It's very similar to my grandmother's flower garden. But with this rug, what I found very interesting is where they use the rug on the floor. Very large rug on the floor, and it also has the fringes on the end. And also, what I found very interesting was the instructions are there for the rug. So if I put this very close, you probably could pause and read this because it's very interesting. This is the second set. And let's see if I can do this. I don't know if you'll be able to read that, but it's very interesting because it's called a dollar mat. And this was made in the opposite side of the province that I live. It's in Digby. Materials were mostly secondhand. The backing could be anything from an unbleached sugar bag to a large piece of Aunt Martha's old gabardine coat. If large sections weren't available, the backing would be pieced. Usually it was not a stiff or hard material, and in many cases even the finished product would have little body. The popular materials for the dollars was felt, and that was the kind that was used for hats. It was the very dense felt that was used in hats. They were cut in round shapes of sizes approximating those of the common coins, although I have seen this type of mat made of hearts and leaf shapes. When there wasn't enough felt to complete the mat, the heaviest fabrics available were used. These shapes were then put together with imagination, and various arrangements resulted. A dime piece might be sewn with a buttonhole stitch onto a quarter piece, which in turn would be buttonholed into a silver dollar piece. Then the whole piece could butt the first, and so on, with the colors and arrangements making every mat different. Sometimes just the little dimes were used, and that was what happened here. Usually a border of some kind was added. It would be half circles of felt, buttonholed to the edge, making a scalloped border. It could be a crocheted border, scalloped or plain, or the edge could be just hemmed. So I found that very interesting. Many of these mats had a soft piece of old blanket sewn to the back, and the result was an attractive mat for the bedroom or some area where there would be little wear on the delicate construction. So that was very interesting, and so much for penny rugs being used from scraps too small to hook, because the very heavy fabrics were used, as was said here, and also they were large rugs and they were used on the floor. So that I found very interesting, and I will do another section for you on rug hooking. This is the section on rug making, if I can get a close-up here. Very difficult. I think this would probably interest the rug hookers. The hooked rug or mat has been made in Nova Scotia for generations and was the most popular type of rug made here. The mat hooker used second-hand materials, woolen when possible, but knitted long johns of cottons or blends were used extensively for the background. When there was yarn left over from spinning or weaving, the ends were sometimes used for the best parlor rugs. But throughout Nova Scotia, the old clothing and other second-hand cloth was generally used. These cloth scraps were cut into strips from 1/4 to 3/8 inch wide, folded, held at the back of the rug, and with a hook pulled through the backing to form a loop on the front surface. Burlap from feed sacks was used for backing, but some of the older mats can be found with hand-loomed backings. Methods varied in different localities. For instance, in the southwestern part of the province, Yarmouth and Digby, practically everyone clipped the loops, making a soft, velvety texture. On the South Shore, which is where I live, and in Pictou, Cumberland, and Colchester counties, the pile was usually left looped. The Acadians were prone to clip their rugs, and from photographs of early Acadian mats, we see that they used scroll borders and lovely floral centers. So that is quite interesting about here's a photo of the hooks, about the materials used. Here's an example. And that is an example. And this is called a hit and miss. These are called. This is the hit and miss part. And there was something else that was interesting. And it's called the bunch mat. And I think that may be called something different in other areas, but this is the bunched mat. And this is the photo of the bunched mat on the front and the back. It was made differently in different areas and had many local names, but it had a common use: to get the mud off the farm boots at the back door of the house. This is why it is very hard to find an old one. Nobody saved a worn-out bunched mat. The mat is made of scraps of heavy fabric cut from a 1/2 inch to 1 inch wide and 2 to 4 inches long. It is backed with burlap or any loosely woven sturdy material. It may be made with or without the use of a mat hook. If a mat hook is used, it should have a thick stem for the hook and is inserted into backing clear up to the handle, making the hole as large as possible. On one half of the strip is brought up in this hole. Another hole is made beside it, closing the previous hole. The second hole receives the other end of the strip, and so on. So that's called a bunch mat here, but I think it's probably I don't know, is it a proddy mat or something else in other places. So this is a very interesting book. It has knitting and weaving and needlework, crochet, quilts. It's out of print, but you can buy copies on, I think, Amazon or eBay. So I thought the penny rug section was very interesting, and I hope you enjoyed it.